Welcome to the Tech Insider, where we talk to the people who can give you the insights and trends that matter to you in your business. I'm Christine Grail with Leica Geosystems. I'm super excited to have with us on the program today Russell Hall. He is the mobile mapping manager for Langen. Welcome to the program, Russell.
Hi, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So what have you been doing that's fun lately?
So actually, I'm having a lot of fun with Leica's equipment. We were the first in the country to get our scanner unlocked on Monday. So now we have the 4 returns with the TRK and a bunch of other features that were also unlocked with this latest update, including LGSX. So much testing and R&D and a lot of excitement with that. So
that is exciting, but you're kind of a technology nerd if that's what you're having fun with. I mean, honestly.
Yes. I do also enjoy the beach and yoga and stuff, but yeah, no, I love experimenting and creating new workflows and operating procedures with every update for every piece of equipment with scanning and reality capture.
Like, I'm used to that term with our phones. We want it unlocked so we can play around with things. Is that kind of a similar concept with the TRK?
Yeah, so it always had the physical capabilities of doing it, but I think my understanding was, they did a lot of research and development over in Europe, and they wanted to make sure everything was working as as intended before it was released.
Okay.
So it was just a simple firmware unlock, just like a phone. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't know that capability existed. So, and you apparently are in a position to be one of the first. So that's exciting.
Yes.
So you've been mobile mapping for a while, and I know now the term is TRKing, right? Because that's what Langen has called it.
Yes.
TRKing all over the place. Before you were
Yes.
TRKing, you were using the Pegasus 1, the Pegasus 2. I'm not sure how you would turn that into a verb, but how many miles do you think you've mapped over the course of your mobile mapping career?
Oh my goodness. That's a great question. I would venture to say if it's just pure lane miles and not the double coverage, I mean, it's got to be in the thousands of miles. Now I'm not going to be able to stop thinking about that question until I come up with an answer at some point.
Well,
Yeah,
it's a great question, right? I mean, I used to go backpacking, and so as a backpacker, we used to log the miles on our boots, right? So I just wonder if that's something similar that you do when you're in mobile mapping. Do you log the miles of the unit that you're using? I don't know.
We do, yeah, but I haven't compiled it. It would be cool to make a chart maybe and see how like a destination or something. Well, I'm also a huge nerd, so I would probably try to do it like from Lord of the Rings, the destination from the Shire to Mordor. But yeah, or any, it'd be cool to see like if we've made it from New York to LA or something, right? Over time. It's pretty neat.
It would, for sure. I see an infographic in your future. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to watch for that, right?
Yes.
So I know that one of the things that you have done and that Langen is really proud of is that you don't just use your mobile mapping system to map roadways, that you kind of take it and you use it on all kinds of different projects. Where's the most unexpected place that you found yourself using mobile mapping? It doesn't even have to be the TRK, although I know that you're really pushing the limits on that. But where's the most unexpected place that you find yourself using mobile mapping?
Well, that's a really good question. We've used it for some interesting ways that I mean, it's still on a roadway, but we had this one contractor that would have us scan. They were in charge of doing guide rail replacement and stuff. So they would go on Google Earth and kind of see where it was failing, and then they would have a scan, and then they would use that and submit that for areas to be fixed. I thought that was an innovative way to do it. For me personally, I gotta say, I think the boat. The boat is still the favorite way to use it, and I don't see a lot of other companies doing it. At least, or when I speak to them, and it's such a neat way to get underneath a bridge. A lot of times people just have terrestrial scanners, and you can't reach or you can't get the angles that you want, and it works very, very well. Putting the Pegasus or the TRK on a boat.
Sure. And I know that you started that with probably the Pegasus 2. I mean, I think Langen was
Correct.
one of the first companies to invest in the Pegasus mobile mapping technology. And now here you are with the TRK, and that's been a lot of fun.
Hmm.
So, with using it in unexpected places, does that it probably pushes you to keep trying new things. Like if
Yes.
you can use it on a boat, what else can you use it on, right?
Yes. And I will say we do a lot in the New York City area, and anytime you scan in Manhattan, and it presents a myriad of different technical problems. Whether it's multipath or just complete outage for GPS or the logistics of driving and stuff like that. So I've been fortunate at Langen. We've done all the tunnels in New York City and some other really cool bridges, and they all present challenges that are unique, basically, to anywhere else in the country besides a handful of different places. So I always love working there.
So with all of the experience that you had using the Pegasus mobile mapping system, and now you've started using the TRK, are you seeing a lot of differences in the technology?
Yes. Yes. We went from the phase-based scanner to the time of flights now, and we went from a single scan head, obviously with the original Pegasus 2, to the TRK with the dual head. Tremendous. It goes so much further, and a lot more returns. Giving up for the last generation, the dual head scanners in time of flight were a little bit noisier. That's why we went with the Pegasus 2, because the phase base is super, super clean. But with the TRK, the Neo, it is, even with the time of flight, it's just, the data is fantastic. It's so clean. Now we're getting 4 returns like a drone LiDAR. So now we're penetrating into vegetation even further than we were. So it was very exciting.
Well, and are you seeing any improvements in those areas with multipath and, working in downtown areas? Is it a little bit easier because of the automation and AI that's built into the technology?
Yes. So one of the biggest things was the overhaul to the way the registration was done from Pegasus into the TRK. It's a very guided process. So if anyone's ever used Register 360, it's very similar. You have your import, you have your optimization, and then you have your finalization. So it follows that workflow, but then also the registration process has been revised now, and it works very good. I mean, you have things like visual alignment, which for years I've been wishing existed in the Pegasus, whereas it existed always in Cyclone. So that's fantastic to be able to force the clouds together. Now with the new update, we just got the ability to trim tracks and split tracks. So that really helps us to deliver a unified LGS, as there's many terrestrial scanning companies that are Leica users. So that's really nice. They could just take our LGSX, pop it in. They could do cloud to cloud with an RTC or a P50 or whatever, Leica scanner they have for, getting some fusion and stuff like that. So pretty cool stuff.
Well, and you mentioned fusion. So I know that you've been working on a lot of interesting projects. I mean, over the course of your career, you've had the opportunity to, I believe, get involved in surveying an F1 racetrack,
That's
the
correct. Yep.
NASA crawler. I think you were
Mhm.
involved in the NASA crawler project.
Yes.
So very
Mhm.
cool stuff. What is one of the most complex projects you've been involved with that uses data fusion? And maybe first explain a little bit what you mean by data fusion, and then
Okay.
tell
So,
me about a project that you're really proud of.
so data fusion is really just having multiple sources of LiDAR and bringing them together, and doing it in such a way that everyone understands the quality of the data, the different data sets. Because if you're going to have a mobile scan, it's going to be tighter than a drone LiDAR scan. It's just the way that the registration process works for each of them, and the way it deals with systemic error and everything. Um, so we've been getting into when we do our sites. You mentioned this earlier. We don't always do roadways with our mobile mapper. We've gotten really good at doing project sites with them and getting efficient. Whereas we might go out and scan with the TRK or TRK as a verb, and then we'll look on the field tablet, and now we can see where the holes would be. Let's say there's a big electrical cabinet or something blocking a area of a building. We could just go with the RTC or BLK to go and infill behind it, and then we merge those data sets. That would be a fusion. Another example, we did a section of highway actually where we did the boat. We flew the off roadway We flew that with drone LiDAR. We mobile mapped or TRK'd the highway itself. And then we also put the scanner on the boat and went underneath. So we fused all three there. So that's the two different ways that we've really been working with data fusion.
That sounds really cool. And just for those in our audience who aren't familiar with the technology, the RTC, of course, is the terrestrial laser scanner, high speed, and the BLK2GO is the handheld laser scanner that is more imaging based. So, very cool use of technology. And of course, you're always pushing those limits. I'm sure that as you're pushing the limits of technology and trying these different things to bring together these different data sets, you're also learning some pretty big lessons along the way. Is there a specific project where you applied all these technologies and you really learned some key things that have helped you advance what you're doing there at Langen?
Yes, the Formula One racetrack was one definitely where you really got to see the quality of the control matters for anything with reality capture. I always tell people, especially external clients, I can only ever be as good as the control that you give us, right? We can't exceed the control. So if you're happy, if your accuracy tolerances require digitally leveling through it, then that's what you have to do. If you're okay with RTK for control and it's floating 600ths or whatever, then that's okay. But you can't expect any scan to exceed that. It's impossible. It's only going to be as good as that under best case scenario. So it's really about understanding control and how accurate does the project need it to be. Because there's also a diminished return the other way. Like, don't need to digitally run through, everything if you don't need it. So it's really that. And then biggest takeaway from mobile scanning, I would say you really want to start good and you want to end good. And what I mean by that is good sky, nice smooth IMU, drive lines before you want to start good and end good. And then you just want to have good, consistent control. Can pretty much get you out of almost any jam.
Yeah, those basics are always so important, especially the more advanced the technology gets. You have to keep those basics in mind, right? All the foundational
Yes.
survey principles. Yeah. So you've been using the TRK for about 6 months now, I believe.
Correct.
What has been the most impressive project that you've been able to accomplish with the technology? I'm sure you can't name any names, but just in general terms, what has surprised you about what you've been able to accomplish?
Okay, that's a great question. So we are working on. I am under the constraints of confidentiality. So one project we're doing, it's ultimately for a state agency, and it's a very very busy section of New Haven, Connecticut. And we were completely shocked. I would love this. I'll send you some images after the coverage that we're getting with the amount of cars around. Absolutely fantastic. Just blows us away. And then the other thing that surprised us was we put it on UTV a few times and scanned some campuses, and the coverage and the details on the facades of the buildings just absolutely outstanding. Especially when you bring the TRK point cloud with its classification into something like 3DR and you get into meshing and stuff like that, or using all the different scripts combined with the TRK point cloud is just fantastic. It's really exciting stuff. The upcoming year is going to be very exciting.
So, what does that do for Langen and for your clients when you're able to collect much more impressive data, when you're able to streamline your workflows? How does that affect the work that you're doing?
So, I mean, obviously, getting more efficient and getting more data makes us have more profit. Anyone, right? Because you're not going back. So that's awesome in and of itself. But then also, we're getting these great, fantastic viewers, the TrueView viewers. In my opinion, the best viewer there is. And now we have that. And then you could just send an LGSX file and it's got all the imagery, all the point clouds. If you have, maybe you have landscape architects and then they're looking at the high res photos, but maybe you have someone working on the lighting and they can measure the light poles and, all the non-traditional things that engineers or designers or architects would want to measure, but wouldn't typically appear on a survey unless it was specifically asked. So by having all that data, we don't have to go back, and either they can measure it for themselves, or we could just go in and extract, which is a cost savings to the client as well.
So you're talking about better visibility into the data that you're collecting. You're talking about making it more easily digestible by different people who are stakeholders in the project and
Mhm.
more easily accessible, which has to have a pretty big impact on the projects that you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I always say consume when I always talk. I'm like, or digest, like you said. How do we get more people able to consume or understand the data, especially lay people that are not, reality capture savvy? And I feel like that's where TrueView really comes in, and then this dense, beautiful data set from the TRK. And it just, you're getting the data into more people's hands. A very, very well compressed LGSX format. Um, so the files are smaller, even though they contain a monstrous amount of data. If you were to split it into it's just LAS and imagery, it'd be 4 times the size, right? But then the way that like a TrueView and their other products read the LGSX, it feels very lightweight. It's very impressive. So it makes it more accessible, the data, more accessible to people.
So you did an interview about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago with Geoholics, and you made a
Correct.
prediction in that interview where you talk about, that the industry as a whole has been collecting so much data, and the data collection side has continued to evolve at a much faster pace than software. That's always been the case, I think. But
Mhm.
you made a prediction that it's the consumability of the data that's really going to advance over the next, I think you said 20 years, and that was a couple years ago. And so, have you already
Mhm.
seen some pretty significant advances happening in how people consume the data?
Yes, now we're starting to see the emergence of AI as well, and we're starting to see more software programs be able to just ingest point clouds. Um, but yeah, I think the rise of AI we're going to see over the next few years, and that's gonna, and different viewers, and we're seeing different software companies that are able to to consume and present point cloud data to more people that are not in this industry, but to the end users, different end users that maybe, instead of having to buy $20,000 worth of software, and now there's free software that you could go in and even make models from and stuff. So I am seeing that. It's very exciting because that's really what's going to make the industry explode. It's just the more people that can consume it the more people are going to want it, right?
Yeah, for sure. It is. It's fun to watch. Are you seeing client needs and expectations changing as they become more aware of what's possible?
Yes, they're actually, so they want the viewers now. That's becoming standard. Whereas before, um, would see people would ask for it to be scanned, kind of just to have it canned in case something came up. Let's say it was litigation, or maybe to have a wall outcrop before scan, just in case it fell. But now they're like, oh, can we have the point cloud? Either they'll work with it directly, they want the viewers, so that's great. So everything's trending that direction. They're just getting it into more people's hands.
So it sounds like one of the things that you're doing, one of the things that Langan is doing is trying to continually put yourself in that client role, figure out how can what it is you're doing, all that data that you're collecting
Mhm.
be delivered as something that adds more value to the client, because it's they don't care so much about the data. They want the information. They want the
Right.
intelligence.
Hmm.
So, what are some of the things that Langan is doing besides making investments in technology? Because obviously that's a big one. But what are you doing to add more value to those deliverables?
So a lot of it comes from discussions, a lot of discussions with the clients, and then understanding what they do. If they're a landscape architecture firm, I just keep going back to that. That maybe they're interested in meshing of trees, or build, facades or something like that for sun studies, or just talking to them and having conversations and seeing what they do, and ways that we could improve their workflow. And a lot of times we've come up with custom solutions, whether it's through scripts or custom deliverables with our in-house programmers, where we kind of meet them in the, work with them and come up with an exact deliverable that they want, that they've never had before, which is it's a great feeling, accomplishment when you get to custom build a delivery for someone.
Yeah, you hit on a key point there because I know one of the things that Langan has been doing lately is really dialing into the scripting capabilities with Cyclone
Mhm.
3DR so that you can fine tune those deliverables and really fine tune your workflows as well, because it's not just about the deliverables, but it's about how fast you can get that to your
Right.
clients.
hmm Yes. So 3DR, we've been working on that. We have an innovation group, some brilliant people at Langen that do programming and all kinds of stuff. And we've taken some of the scripts that Leica provides, or people like Klaus or I'm sorry, some of the other developers from Leica, and we've taken them and either improved on them or conceptually it gave us an idea, right? And we're like, hey, can we do this? And but maybe with trees. One really cool one we did is we took the tree script that someone from like Klaus from Leica put up on YouTube, and it's several steps, and it is awesome. But we took that and made it into one button press, which is pretty cool, where it's making a surface and offsetting it and slicing, and it works fantastic on TRK dataset. So it's really cool. So, and we're building out some other ones like that. So it's pretty neat. You get these unique scripts that no one else has.
That's a lot of fun. I bet that coming from a survey background, you never expected, or maybe you did, you're young enough, I don't know. You never expected to be in that situation where you'd kind of be in software development, right? You're programming,
Mhm.
you're doing some things that don't necessarily fit within whatever you will learn to do as a surveyor back in college, right? It's just,
Right.
it seems like the opportunities are wide open for what you can do as a geospatial professional.
hmm I used to I mean, I've been surveying a long time, since let's see, 24 years. So, and I remember working on jobs doing streetscape topo, just wishing being like, I wish there was a way we could just drive a car down here and then the computer would just extract everything. And we're really close to that right now. I mean, we have the technology to drive through and scan it. Um, so yeah, no, it's really nice, and I'm fortunate enough to work with very brilliant people. They're the ones who do all the work. I just get to do the
Well, I think
interview, I guess. So,
I think you undersell yourself though, because you are one of those people that like to push the limits of technology. I mean, that is something that you do on a consistent basis. That's why you're out in front. That's why you're doing such innovative work, right? And
yes,
so
thank you.
tell me about some of the things that you do with technology when you first, probably even before you make that decision to invest. How are you really pushing the limits to see what it's capable of? Because it's one thing to look at a spec sheet and see the
hmm
limits on the spec sheet, but you don't really believe the spec sheet necessarily. You want to see for yourself.
Yes, that's our starting point. The manual. So anytime, so this update that we just got on Monday is a great example. So it added the ability to split drive tracks into different ones and a couple other features. So we test it and the autonomous capture. Well, what happens if we do? What happens if we drive at this speed? What happens if we do this? Like, is the point cloud going that? How much further does the point cloud go? How early do we need to stop tracks? To split them, all kinds of things. We always test everything, push it to the limit. How hot can we use the system? How cold can we use the system? Because my favorite mantra is chance favors the prepared mind. I found that to be true in my working in personal life. And being prepared, someone will inevitably ask you, hey, can you use the scanner in 28 degrees? And people will look at the manual, and I'm not, these numbers are arbitrary, but let's say the manual says 32, they're going to say no, 32. But because we've tested it and we know it can work down to 20 degrees, that puts us in a when opportunity comes by, we are prepared to jump on it. That is the philosophy with all of our testing.
Yeah, there's no such thing as luck, right? And I think you had a situation too where you had someone ask, "Hey, can you use the TRK backwards?" Right?
Yes.
And you
Yes.
actually put it to the test. Like, I don't know, let's
Mhm.
see.
Yeah. Yes, actually, yes. And that was a big part of winning this project was that everyone else used what the vendor had said, and we tested it first. So that's yeah, it was a great example of chance favors the
Yeah.
prepared mind.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm sure being an innovation leader also has some drawbacks sometimes. Was there ever a situation where maybe you spoke too soon and you had to backtrack a little bit and rethink how you approached a project?
Yes. I have written checks I couldn't cash before, or just it was very difficult. Things didn't go as planned because it's hard sometimes, especially when you're the first person to do something and you have a workflow down, but then inevitably there's downstream things that you are not prepared for, right? Because how could you know? Sometimes you don't know the burner's hot until you touch it, right? That's one of those lessons. So yeah, absolutely. That's why a lot of times I don't mind speaking about things that we do at Langen or anything, because there even though it might look like there's A to B, there's a lot in between A to B that life experiences to get there as well.
Absolutely. There always is. And the
Mhm.
reality is nothing is ever 100% perfect as much as we would like to put on that
Mhm.
face, right? And so I think a lot of success comes down to how do you then handle those situations. And so when
Mhm.
you're in a situation where maybe you do feel yourself like, okay, this isn't working out exactly the way I expected. How do you handle that? What kind of lessons have you learned about how you deal with that?
That's a really good question. So, first of all, I'm fortunate enough at Langen to work here where they encourage innovation and always trying to find more efficient stuff, processes and everything, and technology and ways to apply it. So that's fantastic. It fosters that kind of growth and thought process. Um, what I will say though, you have to what I've learned is you're going to reach a point here or there where you have to decide, hey, I need to cut my losses and change the way I'm going about this. I have had a couple instances where I had the hero complex, let's call it, maybe, where I just, you want something to work the way you intended it. And then you have to realize there's a diminished return with that, right? Like you can't just sink endless time into something. You have to be prepared to admit that it's not working and go back to the drawing board. Hopefully that was a
And
good
I would think
answer.
that yeah, no, for sure. I would think that as long as you're communicating with your client
Mhm.
and you're sharing part of that journey with them, that the outcome is they respect you more because you're being transparent. You're not
Yeah.
just trying to put on a show. You're really, and really you're
Mhm.
expecting your clients to innovate with you in a way, and the outcome for them tends to be much more positive when they're willing to take some risks because they know that you're going to deliver one way or another. You're going to deliver on
Mhm.
what you promised.
Yes, absolutely. We will always deliver. That is never not an option, or never an option to not deliver. Excuse me. Um, these are fringe cases, right? Most projects are easy, but we are at Langen. A lot of times we get approached. Other people say they can't do a job, or they've been turned on by other providers or something like that because it's the too technically challenging, and that's the kind of stuff that gets my ears perked up. So yeah, like you said, it's a conversation when you're doing something no one's done before or something that's very technically challenging. So it's constant communication with the client and being upfront about everything, like you said, and people respect that and understand that it's very important. I mean, that's how you
Well, and
build
that's
great
ultimately,
relationships.
yeah, ultimately that's what moves the whole industry forward, right? Is
Mhm.
when everyone's willing to take a little bit of risk and the payout can be tremendous when you're willing to try something new. So it's fun to be in that place. I would imagine that
Mhm.
Langen's culture, because it encourages innovation, it also builds in let's have a buffer and make sure that everyone understands what we're trying to do here. And then there's a little bit more flexibility and
Yes.
workaround.
Mhm. Correct.
And then you have the
And
right
again, these
tools in the
are oh,
toolbox,
I'm
right?
so sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. What did you say?
No, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so you have the right tools in the toolbox. So if one thing isn't working the way you'd hope, then you have something else. You always have a way of changing your approach, and you have the expertise in house to be able to try new things, and so that
Mhm.
ends up a win win for everyone, really.
Yes. No, that is well said.
Okay, what
Uh,
is the most fun aspect of your job? What do you enjoy the most?
But I feel like I'm portraying it like all I do is to solve complex problems every day. Most of our jobs go very, they're simple, straightforward projects, but the jobs where we get to figure things out, or when I get to work on a new script, or I like innovating. That's like every day when I get to solve problems, or I love that. That's what makes me work well past when I even need to or anyone's asking me. I just enjoy it. It's something I enjoy doing constantly, just playing with different software and figuring out stuff to be the first ones to do it, I guess maybe too drives me.
So so you weren't kidding at the beginning of our discussion when you said the most enjoyable thing you've been doing lately is really working with the TRK. Like you just enjoy doing that. That's what you do in your downtime, huh?
Yes. So there's a staff member at Langham, Brandon, and we were at 7:30 last night looking at our test scan with the multi-return and going through this. It sounds so nerdy. Going through the software, and we're just oh, we could do this, like with registration of point clouds, and we're getting all excited back and forth with these different, just free flowing thought process about different things we can do. So yeah, no, truly, that is very exciting to me. As lame as that may
Well,
sound. Um,
not at all. That's what makes you the professional, right? That's what makes you the expert, is because you spend so much of your time on it. That's great. What are you most excited about as you look to the future? What are you anticipating over the next maybe 3 to 5 years? I mean, that's a big time span considering how fast things are changing.
the rise and prevalence of AI in land surveying, I think, is going to be the next thing. I see no reason why Autodesk or Bentley couldn't have AI. You hit a button and it learns how you set up your sheets or you draft, right? And then you could just hit a button and it's like, oh, this is a Langen topo at 40, and it just moves everything around. Like, I think that'll be really neat. And then also, obviously, with point clouds, you're seeing the AI classification already in the TRK software, which is phenomenal. And then you're going to see it start to get with extraction of features from a point cloud as well. I think we're going to start to see that really in the next year or two come into prevalence.
It's really exciting. You're not
Mhm.
concerned about it taking over the world and taking over everyone's jobs. I think there's some concern about that by some people, but it seems like it's much more of a valuable tool, and we just have to harness it, and learn how to use it.
As long as that all occurs, the Skynet and everything, after I realized my dreams of having AI do like point cloud extraction and all that, then I guess I'm okay with it.
Oh,
I'm
fun.
kidding.
So are you listening to any interesting podcasts or reading
Yeah.
anything lately that you want to share with our audience?
Well, definitely the Geoholics podcast, which I have just recently become a member of. So definitely always listen to theirs. And I check out RCN and some other ones that I like, more specific, not necessarily geospatial, but technology based.
Okay, awesome. We'll have to check those out. I know that Geoholics is a good one. I know you're now their reality capture expert, right? So I'll have to be listening to
Yes.
that one for sure. I look forward to catching you on
I,
that, and hopefully we'll be able to have you back on our show at some point in the future.
oh, that'd be great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Russell. It's been a pleasure.
Be sure to check out the description for additional resources on this topic. If you enjoyed this content, give us a like. If you'd like to see more of this content, be sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the Tech Insider.